We don't have the little one and try to get different like we did yesterday because thanks to a high finish in the 250, you had a couple shots there, but didn't quite there. And overall, though, a good MLB night. Not great for me, but good, profitable, and ready to move on to another one. Sheets, how'd you do? And what do you think of the slate?
Bad for me. I X'd out Strider, so that made it kind of rough, kind of tough sledding. But listen, Detmer scored well. Cease scored well. It was really the hitting that didn't perform for me. I mean, I would have signed on for Detmer Cease if you want to know the truth. Mm-hmm. But just my hitters just couldn't put it together, and it's the way it goes with baseball. So we're moving on to the next one. So the next one, by the way, there is weather concerns here in New York. I just wanted to let you know that if you didn't know it already from Roth or whatever. But aside from that, it looks like a full slate, which is either a 1-game slate or a pivot slate, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. But we'll just so you guys know, I am going to be going live tonight at 11, and I promise you that there's going to be some baseball hitters to either be sweating or anti-sweating that are still going to be going at 11. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And just because I'm not going to be around tomorrow. So
and I will try to join you. I know I'm definitely going to be busy till just about that time at least. Exactly. So if I can get back in time, I'll pop in with you.
Well, if you're live for something, you'll get in there.
Maybe. Well, I have a commitment I can't get out of exactly. So I'll explain that when it's my time. But right. We'll see.
The other thing is that we have to work out when we can do golf. Just because
I can. If you want to do it at some point today, just let me know and I can try and find a way. I'll find
I need to. I would need to get ready for it, which I'm not.
Yeah.
So we'll try to figure something out.
Okay. Yeah, let me know. All right, so let's pull up your screen and go game by game here. Good to see Rich and Jax in the chat. Good morning, guys. Good morning on my end. Good afternoon on your end, I guess. And let's get into it. We got Cincinnati, Baltimore first, which is also a game that is, at first look, it looks like I just don't think you have to worry that much about the weather on this one, as of right now, at least. Well, maybe I'll change my tune later on, but seems okay right now, right, Sheets?
That's again, I'm just looking at Roth like everybody else. So
yeah, I'm just looking at the rain in general. Just goes away after like 7:00, so it can't be too bad.
People got a little bit of a little stress last night, but they ended up playing and
they started. That game ended. It was the last game to end, so which means it was like 1 a.m. or something.
I think so.
All right, so 1 a.m. game. For me, if you want to take it, I have no problem with Tyler Wells. I am not going to play Abbott. I just think that would be if you're playing 150, maybe you throw him in. The guy does have upside, and Baltimore has a good offense, but this is not their best version of that offense. As you can see, that Aaron Hicks is projected to bat fourth, and you've got Westberg, who's a really, 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 really good prospect, but he's still young guys and stuff. I also think you can make an argument for the Baltimore hitting, and that's the Baltimore hitting is probably the highest level of interest I have, but it's not extremely high to where I feel like I need it. If they move Westberg up in the lineup or something like that, and then you get Westberg and Urias in the top 5 at 2.2K and 2.7, it's going to make that stack a little bit easier to build. So I do think, at least as a mini stack goes, Baltimore's in play for me, and then very, very large.
So normally I would say we're going to wait to talk about it later, but in the context of the slate, it's important for everybody to realize that the Dodgers are going to be projecting as clearly far and away the best stack. So at huge ownership. So as we go through these games, we're keeping in mind what's ahead of us, and so if we either blast past a game it's just not as good, whatever, that's just because, this Dodgers is kind of hanging over us. And then at the same time, we're looking for pivots and we're looking for teams that look good, but obviously no one's going to look as good as the Dodgers today, but we're going to try to find something to either complement with the Dodgers that's low owned, or to kind of or replace the Dodgers, which are low owned. So in the context of the slate, I think it is important, even though we're not going to get to the Dodgers till later, to at least throw it out there. They're in Colorado against the nut matchup. So
it's going to be, I think it's probably the highest run total we've seen projected in the season.
I heard it was 7.5 or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because it's 7.5, but it's one of those things where if they scored 8, everybody in the DFS world would be mad who played them.
If they scored 8, they'll bust.
Right. That's how it goes. Unless they get
You want to hear something really funny? So I wasn't around to see it, but like over this past weekend, the Angels scored 24 runs.
Yeah, in 3 innings.
In Colorado.
Yeah.
And Ohtani and Trout combined for like 3 RBIs.
I know it was bizarre. Everybody in the whole lineup had like 12 to 20 something fantasy points, and then all the guys who they brought in after them had the same. Like,
yeah,
it was pretty funny.
So for me, I do have Wells as a secondary option here. At 1, 2, yeah, I have him like kind of like 6th or 7th or something like that, which makes him playable. As far as the ownership on him goes, he is going to be getting I see it like 15% or something like that now, so it's not like you're getting any big break. There is one ownership that's going to have to change. We'll get to him later, but like right now I have Ohtani like much lower than he's going to be, because Sabersim's kind of screwing me with that one. They had like 4% like an hour ago, and I make my tweaks a little later. But for
whatever happens with some reason with the early projections for not just Ohtani but all the Angels, they always are way too high. Like they're like 50% or like 5% when they're going to be 20. Like it's just makes no sense.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get back to it. But anyway, so Wells is a play. He's not a priority, and I don't think I'm going to get down to Baltimore. As far as my stacks, I'm going to have like, aside from the Dodge, I have like 6 others, maybe even 9 others actually that I could talk about, but I'm just not quite getting to Baltimore right now.
Yeah, I understand that. San Diego and Pittsburgh. I certainly think San Diego is one of the pivot options today. I actually don't like. I'm sort of always on the look. Rich Hill has actually been a better pitcher for a lot of his life than he probably gets credit for. However, this doesn't seem like an ideal situation for him. And it is decent enough hitting weather in Pittsburgh, which is a stadium upgrade for San Diego, close slightly when it, because it's 71 degrees, 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to left. So I'm good with the idea of San Diego here, but I don't know where they're going to fit on my end at the end for me. And this is a spot where like we would have been all over Darvish at this price earlier in the year, and people may still be. I'm a little more hesitant. I actually like him against teams like Pittsburgh in some ways, just because they aren't especially patient. This is not a strong lineup they're projecting. Their best hitters are not going to be in the lineup. Because of all that, he's in play for me, but I don't know if he's going to be as high for me as he is for everyone else. And also, I need to look a little further because he hasn't looked quite right in a while. And anyway, I have an interest in San Diego for sure, and I have a little bit of interest in Darvish.
I have San Diego as one of the top 3 pivot stacks, as you just kind of alluded to, and they're not going to be that highly owned only because they're just really expensive. The top guys, Tatis 6,500, Soto 62, Machado 59, Bogarts reasonable enough 54, but then you get Nelson Cruz against at 2,900 still. Which is super duper cheap, and Kim is fair enough at 4,300. So I do have San Diego as one of the top stacks to play. I'm not getting a Darvish, which is sort of
nice. That's probably good.
Yeah, so I'm not really getting to him at all. So for me, it's just going to be either San Diego or pass. But I'll end up probably with a decent amount of San Diego.
Yeah, I think that. That sounds about right. And for what it's worth, since we said the thing about him getting pinch hit for, we've seen him get 4 or 5 and 4 at bats in the last 3 games. So maybe there's a little hope that he can hang in there a little longer with Nelson Cruz. All right, San Francisco and Toronto. In Toronto, I'll tell you what. This is for me. Oh, sorry. Is that? Am I in the right game for you? Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Lined up by accident. Wow.
No, we've been running hot as far as that goes. Actually, recently.
Yeah. So you get the bullpen game here from San Francisco against Toronto. I know they've let us down. I still am sort of a little bit interested in Toronto as we're talking about pivot stacks off of the very chalky Dodgers, and I think that they're viable. I really do. I also think Gaussman is viable, although that 11K is going to be hard to do. But then again, it'll be hard to do with the Dodgers, and Ohtani is also a really good option. So it's kind of Gaussman is up there for me, and I think the upside is there. But I think that I'm probably a little more interested in the Toronto side of the bat, just at zero ownership whatsoever. I might take some shots on Toronto, and I don't love stacking against bullpens, but at least maybe a few bats in there. San Francisco's bullpen has been actually pretty good, but I'm just sort of intrigued. I like playing Toronto in Toronto. So they were one of my other pivot stacks, but nothing crazy exciting. I have Gaussman as a top pitcher, but I don't even know where he ranks for me right now, to be honest. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, your natural price pivot off of Ohtani. If you just wanted to just say, okay, I don't feel like paying 11.3 for Ohtani because he's going to be really highly owned, but I can make it work from a price perspective, then you could obviously just play Gaussman. He'll be a little lower owned, and he projects a little bit worse, but I mean, he obviously, like you said, he obviously has upside. Alex Wood as a long reliever coming in the second, maybe. It's just too many other options for me to get to him, I think. So I'm not going to do that. And fortunately, I'm not getting to Toronto, and I say fortunately because I'd like to have as many options as possible. So I'll throw in your Toronto and your Baltimore as kind of like other options for me to kind of tack onto my own. I don't know how much luck I've had against Alex Wood, and for whatever reason, whenever I play Toronto, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Toronto at home always looks is a team that you probably want a piece of, and considering that you want to try to find something aside from the Dodgers to play, maybe I should throw them in. So again, that's a long way of saying Gaussman is a pivot, Toronto is a pivot, but neither of them are like my top choices.
Yeah, and I just want to say throughout with Wood, he has like kind of gotten a little bit lucky this year. He's sort of I don't even know what to say. The numbers don't look good. The walks are up. The strikeouts are down. The hard hits are up. The home runs are up. But it's not like to an egregious level. I'm gonna have to reconsider that. I'm gonna have to consider the Toronto thing a little more. I think I still prefer San Diego, but I definitely want to be open to teams like Toronto when they're getting no ownership. All right, why don't you jump out with the next one here?
So Miami and Boston will have the same conversation that we've been having sort of off the cuff about Alcantara and the leash and all that stuff, which was which is a point of discussion last time he came out there. But forget the leash. I think I don't like the 10 hits.
Yeah,
I just don't like the 10 hits in back-to-back games. That's one of them.
Strikeouts are low too.
Yeah. So I'm probably not going to do it in DFS tonight. Boston's not the easiest park. Whatever. And yet on the other hand, I really don't want to play Whitlock either. I just don't like playing pitchers in Fenway. On the other hand, again, looking for kind of stupid like complementary stacks, I'm seeing a little bit of Miami in my values. So I'm going to throw those into the mix. But I'm not going to play Boston, and I still think Alcantara is good enough pitcher. Well, I don't need to be stacking against him, so I'll throw Miami into the hopper. As far as my stacks go, probably not going to get to a 5-man though, and we'll consider both pitchers kind of not in my main bills.
Yeah, I'm definitely considering Whitlock at first look. I actually think, I don't know why no one's noticing, this guy has actually been good. He's gotten and he's pitching deeper into games too. 7 innings, back-to-back starts. He's put up 15, 25, 23. He's a somewhat cheaper option that I think has a little bit of upside against the Marlins team that is because of Arias, it's frustrating to play against them because guy's hitting 400 still, or right near 400. I guess he just dropped below. And I also can see the argument for the Marlins stack. I can see an argument with the way he's been going with against Alcantara, but I just can't quite bring myself to do it, especially at these prices. So I get the idea. I think that the Miami mini stack or something like that, maybe a full stack, but I actually think Whitlock is in play as well. So I see both sides of that one. The problem with playing Miami is you got Arias at 5,100, and as this guy is such a good hitter, it's just his fantasy production is going to come in like forms of like 9 and 10 fantasy points because he's, he has to go like 5 for 5 in order to get there because he doesn't have the power. Although he did hit a home run the other day, which he's hit 2 in the last couple of weeks, so it's more than a usual season for him. But yeah, I like Whitlock a little. I like Miami a little, but all of this is because we're trying to find things that are going to take us off of this the highest total we've seen all season. So, all right, then you have the Mets game, which look, Sheets. The weather does look a little scary, but the Mets, we could try. Maybe it saves us money from doing the thing that we keep trying that has not worked once, and that's trying to attack Tehran. The guy has given up no more than he had one start where he had 5 runs, and I believe it was his second start. Everything else has been 3 runs or less the whole season, and everybody's just been trying to attack him. And again, Vegas doesn't have any respect for him, but yeah, I'm probably just off this game anyway, but I would have definitely considered trying to beat my head against the wall and do the same thing. David Peterson's price is too cheap. Should he play? I guess it's a lefty against Milwaukee, so I think we could consider Peterson. But he hasn't pitched in months. Who knows how long he's going to go? I just don't think I want to do that without knowing how long he's going to pitch. So I'm probably off this game anyway.
Yeah. So I sort of hope that this game plays and it's all clear because, listen, I don't as much as it's kind of fun to try to stack against Tehran and lose. Okay. Let me tell you what I'm never bad at. I'm never bad at stacking against David Peterson. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
And I know I just feel it. I know what's going to happen. If
hate Peterson.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. If they get an all clear like an hour before game time and it's like 100% playing, what people are going to do are they're going to play Peterson and Wu and play all the Dodgers, right? And I am going to be all too happy to take it to play Milwaukee. So I hope it does rain out because I might end up to play Milwaukee. And at the end of the day, if I do that, I'll probably end up, playing the Mets also against Tehran. So they'll probably both lose. So I am hoping that it gets rained out. I am not playing Peterson. I think he sucks. That's a very heavy analytical term. And I would rather play Milwaukee guys against him. But again, if there's any rain risk at all, I'm not taking a shot at anything in that game.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you. I do think that you made at least an interesting point about the Milwaukee. I think you could argue a little for maybe a mini stack. I don't know if I can get to a full stack against Peterson.
Play Adames and somebody else, like
Adames, Urias if he's up in the order of the day, which he might be, or Owen Miller or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So next up we have Minnesota, Atlanta. Sheets, why don't you start off this one because I'm catching up here and.
Yeah, so I'm not getting to either of these pitchers. Elder, listen, it's weird because again Minnesota strikes out every time they come to the plate, but Elder hasn't really striking me out. So I don't know what I'm doing with that. I'm probably not going to get to him in 9,200. And Atlanta's a good hitting team, but Joe Ryan's the freaking nuts. So I don't know what I'm doing with Joe Ryan. He's not projecting well at all. But all the guy does is perform, So I know it's probably like 400 degrees in Atlanta with winds blowing right into the home run territory at 1,000,000 miles an hour, whatever it is.
That's right.
But that all the guy does is freaking just light people up, Ryan. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I might. I mean, what's wrong with that as a pivot? You know what I mean? So I'm kind of into that a little bit, and yet on the other hand, I'm getting to. Whatever Atlanta I shouldn't say is a top stack. I have a 1, 2. I was on my 7th favorite or something like that. So I'm probably not going to do that. But Ryan at low, well, certainly going to be lower ownership than Ohtani, and probably lower ownership than Gausman too.
Oh yeah, he's going to be like on a completely.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I'll take a shot.
Yeah, so I guess the note of this game is the hitting conditions are incredible. Like it's 87 degrees, it's 11 mile an hour winds blowing out to left center. It's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Of course, we had that yesterday, and as I said, I did not like that game for hitting.
Nope.
And I think I'm probably going to say the same thing again today. I think both of these pitchers are like getting a little bit overlooked, or more than a little. They're going to be completely overlooked. Minnesota has been the highest strikeout team against right-handed pitching, and the Braves are. This is a great offense, but let's not get crazy with this. And the run total is loving them. They have a 5 run total. I don't know if Joe Ryan will pitch again where he has a 5 run total against him. You just don't see that. He's really, really, really good. So stacking against one of the best pitchers in baseball doesn't feel like the optimal way to try to make money on this slate to me. Could Atlanta go off? Sure. Are they as likely to go off and go completely nuts like as some of the other teams are? I don't think so. So I think this is probably end up like maybe a large field Elder or a large field Ryan, but I think I'm probably off most of the hitting. I guess we should mention that the Twins are probably a little bit in play, especially if Buxton's in the lineup. I mean, Kepler's 2.7. Julian, even though you always have to get the pinch hit risk, but at least Elder will, they'll try to work him into the game, and they'll run their normal relievers out there unless the game's like 12-0 early. But Kepler, Royce Lewis, Kirilloff, Julian are all cheap, and then you've got Buxton and Correa who are actually good. Not the other guys aren't. And Gallo hit a bomb last night. I think that this is actually an interesting spot where you can maybe consider some Minnesota, but I don't think I want to attack Joe Ryan. And honestly, like if there's going to be another spot where people are going to spend up as a pivot, I actually think the Braves. I thought the Braves would have been one of the ones, but maybe people are smart and they respect Joe Ryan like I do. It may work out. So you should definitely have it on your list if you're playing 150. If you should have 1 or 2 Atlanta lineups in there, but I don't think that that's going to be a priority for me or anything like that.
I'll tell you, I was such a genius yesterday for about 5 minutes.
What is it?
Full fade of Strider. He gave up a walk and whatever. And instead of playing the Kepler one off, I played the Joey Gallo one off. Okay, and he hit a home run, and I'm like, I am just the nuts. And then Strider struck out 400 guys. that's it. So.
It's right. He got off to a really good start for you. Yeah, that's true.
And then he mowed them all down.
Yeah.
And got the win. I mean, like just for good.
Yeah.
Yep. They took him out of the game, and then like at a tie game, and in the bottom of the inning, Atlanta put up 3 runs. I mean that's running.
Right. So the next one is another one where we have like this is an interesting spot. I think.
Yep.
It's really hard to play Valdez at 10-1 with the other upside guys, but like at the same time, should it be? Like he's got plenty of upside.
He's got on his board. He's got a 33. He's got a 41. He's got a 42.
Yeah,
he's got numbers.
He's a good one, but the guy I'm more interested in here is probably if you want to spend down. Why are we trying to force in David Peterson coming off of an injury? Why aren't we playing some Jordan Montgomery? I understand that. For years, all we've learned is you do not play lefties against Houston. But this is not the same Houston Astros. This really, really isn't. The lack of cheating has definitely hurt them. However, they still don't strike out much against lefties, and we already have a guy who has trouble striking out people. They do. I'm just going to look at their average real quick and where they rank in the league. I can't imagine it's solid enough. So it's not like they've been great against lefties, but they haven't been like. They haven't been terrible. And Montgomery is 7-2. I do think he's a much better play than the other cheap options we talked about because he's actually a competent pitcher who can get you 20 fantasy points, which is you're going to want to spend down if you do want to play the Dodgers. And a low-owned Montgomery is a way to do it. So I have Montgomery and Valdez both on my list, but I have Montgomery as a guy who I actually am seriously considering using.
Yeah, I don't have Montgomery. Well, I mean, I have him like just projected much lower than some other guys, and I got a different guy to play instead of Montgomery. Okay. But we'll get to that pretty soon enough.
Me too.
So Valdez again, I reiterate what you said. I mean, like it's kind of tough. He's always tough to play 10-1, and then he ends up like being in the winning lineup. You know what I mean? Like it's
right.
I just don't know how I'm going to get there. But if you want to play him, I'm not going to tell you not to. That's the best I can do here.
It's pretty wild though. I mean, one thing he's got working for him a little bit is that Houston has sorry, not Houston. Both Houston and is that possible? That's crazy. Houston and the Cardinals have combined for 42 home runs against lefties this year. That's terrible. That's amazing, actually. That's just a home run blocking thing, but still, both teams still effective against lefties, like in terms of not wanting to take pitchers against them, which is why no one will. But I do think that both these guys, it wouldn't surprise me if either of them went out there and had a game. So they're going to stay up on my list for right now.
Yep.
All right, Philadelphia at Chicago. Which
we were running so hot.
Oh, we had it going, didn't we? Shit. Okay, you start off Detroit, Texas. Then I'll jump.
Yeah. So you do have Matt Manning coming back off of the injured list, I guess. Not the greatest spot to come back in Texas. And then you have Martin Perez at 5,700 against Detroit. I'm just gonna have to be forced to try this. I mean, like Perez. I know you usually like to play righties against Detroit, but I mean, you have a starting pitcher who's pretty good at 5,700 against Detroit. I'm just gonna have to try it. I have him as one of the cheaper guys that's not going to be really popular, although maybe he will be. But right now, I don't have him as such. So I do like that, and I do like the Texas side as kind of – I have them at like – well, there's Dodgers, then like a huge chasm, then Padres and two other teams, then I have Texas as always playable. So I do have Texas as an option as far as stacks go, and I do like Perez on the cheap. Again, like these are – remember I mentioned like these pairings, like the double spend downs to get to these Dodgers. It just – makes a lot of sense. So if I could do that with Perez at 5,700, I think I might entertain that option.
Yeah, I'm on the same side as you with the Perez, and I think Texas is the most natural pivot off of the Dodgers today. I'll attack Manning. I'll attack the Detroit bullpen, which actually has been a little better than I think most people thought. They are really expensive. They're hard to get in. You're going to need cheap pitching and I already had Perez as a potential priority if I wanted to spend down because I knew everybody's going to play these other guys, and I'll just take the guy who literally I just played him the other day, and he's just fine. Even 15 fantasy points at this price is totally fine if you get the bats right because the bats you're going to want today are expensive. So I like Perez and I like Texas. The problem is again just how do you get Texas in? So even if you play like the Dodgers. Like if you play Texas, like you can't like play them with the Dodgers unless you use the really cheap Dodgers only, just because they're so expensive. So anyway, I do like Perez and I do like Texas as somewhat priorities. I could jump off here with the Philadelphia.
Is there any severe weather in Philly or Chicago?
Yeah, and I think Ranger Suarez is clearly the best option of all of these guys we just talked about in this lower range. The 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from left. 69 degrees. So, I mean, certainly not cold, like not like the 45-degree games we see there, but not warm. And 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in when I'm looking for cheap pitching that no one's going to play. Give me the guy who, has put up 20, 22 or more in 3 straight games. Give me the guy who's been over 15 in 6 straight games or 5 straight games. And also has shown nobody's touched. And these are against like Atlanta. He's been dominant. He was good against Arizona. Nobody's good against Arizona. The Dodgers, Arizona, and Atlanta, and he's been awesome against all 3 of them. Why am I not going to play him against the Cubs when the wind blows in? Suarez might be my favorite from these cheap guys, especially because he's not going to get owned. And I think he's very, very, very legitimately in play. I also think on the other side, we should at least think about Jamison Taillon at 6,200. I don't know that I want to play him, but I go back to the David Peterson thing. If we're going to consider David Peterson, why aren't we playing Jamison Taillon? I don't see that as being a different thing, especially Peterson coming off of the injury. So if people are going to play Peterson, I'm probably just going to X Peterson out and consider all kinds of guys like this for my main builds.
Yeah, so when we talked about Montgomery, this was obviously the guy that I was referring to that I would prefer at that same price. Although, I mean, from a projection perspective, they're pretty much the same. Montgomery but I just know what I see with Suarez. You know what I mean? Like you just been always on top. You've been doing great. And the 10-mile-an-hour wind certainly puts him, I think, over Montgomery. So I do like that. And I just hope the wind isn't blowing that much in, because I definitely the Philly is the also very natural pivot here as well.
Well, the nice thing you have with Philly is that if it's the lefties, it's not going to matter that much, right? So
okay, that's good.
So that's who you want from Philly for the most part, is the lefties.
Yeah. So that was my along with San Diego, one of my main pivots here is to play Philadelphia. And if it's going to be 20 miles an hour blowing in, then who needs the aggravation, right? But maybe he'll keep the ownership down maybe a little bit, and I'll just play the normal guys from Philly. I think what's going to end up happening, Bobby, is that no matter who I play, I'm going to end up probably double paying down for pitcher. You know what I mean? Like,
it's starting to feel that way, right?
What's that?
It feels that way. The only problem is that you have the guys at the top have massive ceilings, so it's going to make it a little bit tricky.
I know. Well, we'll get to. There are other things I could do. I could play Miami. Oh, great.
I'm curious. At the end of this one, do you mind if you do a quick Saberson build, because I'd like to see what they come up.
I'm definitely doing that.
Okay, cool. All right, so I think that I agree about the Philly lefties for what it's worth, but I probably would just play the lefties. 10 miles an hour at Wrigley is like 20 miles an hour at most stadiums. It's just the stadium is just differently built, and everything else suppresses wind to some extent, at least a little bit, or most stadiums do. Not Wrigley. All right, and I like that we're on the same page with the Martin Perez thing. We'll see if anybody else.
We'll see, because there's a lot of guys you could play on. Let's not even talk about this next game. I think this next game, Cleveland, Kansas City, there's all kinds of variance in this game. I mean, I think that you could play all four sides of this and be in decent shape. You had Gavin Williams, who came in like really popular. You know what I mean? As I mentioned, he would be, and it doesn't work out every time, right? And then Brady Singer, who always, he keeps dropping in price. You and I both sort of agree he's got talent somewhere. It just hasn't exactly flashed it. Right? So I think either of those pitchers in a slate like this, where you probably want to pay down to get to Dodgers, are both in play. And yet, on the other hand, if you wanted to pay up for pitching, I think both these pitchers can get attacked. So I actually have Cleveland as one of my main value stacks to kind of go after here. So, and if that's the case, I can't imagine why I wouldn't take a shot at Kansas City also. Because listen, the Gavin Williams thing can go two ways. Number one, great prospect. He just had jitters. He can come back and mow him down, or maybe he's just not ready. Maybe
he didn't pitch badly, by the way. We keep saying it like he didn't have a bad game. He had a bad first inning. That's it. Right. It's actually more encouraging. He pitched, he was perfect after the first inning.
Right. But in any case, I mean, like I don't know. I might even take a shot with Kansas City. I don't know. Probably not. But for me, it's going to be. I definitely like Cleveland, and I would definitely consider both pitchers.
Yeah, I can't do the Cleveland stacking on full slates. This is the least powerful team we've had in recent memory. Right. I understand it. It all looks fun and well and good, and everybody's cheap except for Jose Ramirez, who can always hit 3 home runs. And obviously, I just can't bring myself to do it just because of how inept they've been offensively. They have the lowest home run rate by a significant margin, and I'm not going to be playing teams like that on big slates. You have crosswinds basically, but it is 88 degrees. It's really good hitting weather. So I have both of these pitchers in play. Cleveland doesn't strike out either, but Brady Singer doesn't strike anybody else out. So something's got to get. Just kidding, because it's the opposite of that. But Brady Singer has actually in real life gotten back to like decent enough. He's not pitching well. Don't get me wrong. He's just been better. He's going 5-6 innings in games instead of getting knocked out in the second inning. I'm way higher on Williams than I think that everybody else is today. I honestly think by the end of the day, you're going to see a lot of people on to Williams. Kansas City is exactly the kind of team that you would want to face if you're him, because he can get in trouble with his control, or he got in trouble with his control in his first start. Casey is not going to let you do that because they'll swing too early in the counts. And they swing and miss a lot too. So I like the Gavin Williams thing. I'm really surprised at first look that he's not getting more ownership than he is, because I just go right back to the young guy. Like if he's going to be sub 10%, I'll make him a priority. I like him better than these other. He and Suarez have been the two that I've liked the best so far of the guys we've talked about in the lower tier. And Singer's just a large field play. I definitely understand these are great hitting conditions. You could take advantage of it. You do have Melendez at 2,900. Nick Prado leading off at 3,200. Maikel Garcia may get up there at 5th at 31. So KC is really cheap if you want to take the other side of it. And I think I prefer KC to Cleveland, because at least with KC, I know they're all running. You know what I mean? If they get on base, I know I'm at least going to get at least a few of these guys like Garcia and Witt and potentially even Prado actually could run today. But so anyway, so I like KC a little bit better than I like Cleveland. And Cleveland, if you're going to stack them, my advice would just be don't go full 5-man. It's just hard to win a full 5-man stack when you don't have a team that hits a home run on a big slate.
Okay, so LA at Colorado. LA is I'll start with this one.
Yeah.
LA it projects to be just well ahead of everybody else. They have the highest run total by a lot. They have the highest raw projection by a lot. Let's try to figure out arguments against it. So number one is ownership. That's always a decent argument. Number two is, all right. So again, I'm just making it up, but Seabold at his last start got wrecked. But in the start before that, he threw a freaking gem pretty much in Boston. The game before that, he was perfectly serviceable at home against San Francisco. And the game before that, at Arizona, he had a very, he had a pretty decent game. For the Dodgers, and like you mentioned, for the Dodgers to pay off their ownership, they need 10 runs. You know what I mean? Like that's just the bottom line. Like they have a total of 7.5, so they're going to need 10, and you're going to have to get the right ones. So it's just tough to overcome that type of ownership when you're playing GPPs. So what I would say is that yes, Dodgers are clearly the best. If you're going to do it, like you can't. Here's who you can't play. I don't think you're going to be able to play Wu. Okay, and we'll get to him in a second, obviously, but. I think it's going to be way too owned. Like Wu, anybody, honestly, with Dodgers. And I'll leave it to you to figure out how to get these guys in. Like, do you want to? You could listen. You could probably play like 1, 5, 8, 9 or something like that, or do pieces or something like that. But listen, make no mistake, they're certainly the best play on the slate. Now, the other thing I would throw in is you do have Kershaw, and we talked about some kind of like low-owned pivots off of Ohtani. And listen, playing in Colorado, so pitching in Colorado certainly is no picnic. But, Kershaw at 4% ownership, maybe, I don't know. I've made worse plays. Let's just say that. So I wanted your opinion on that and what you'd want to do with the Dodgers here.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get a quick glance at some of Kershaw's stuff in cores. And I think we're going to learn that it's probably a little bit better than we think. As always with Kershaw, and he's a discount from these other guys, and he's honestly kind of facing the worst team. It's not like this Colorado team is just like is an awesome offense or anything. They just happen to play in course. Yeah, with the Dodgers, so my rule with them today would be to keep them 4 or less, no matter what you do. You know what I mean? Like, don't play 5-man just because unless you get something way different and you've got like 3 1%ers in your one as your mini stack, or if you have like 2 pitchers sub 10%, which we did talk about some that if you wanted to go that route. But even then, you need to sort of have everything work out just perfectly enough. I'll keep digging and I'll come back to the Kershaw versus this thing, but I actually think that's kind of your best way to get to him. And they, maybe you play Kershaw, Hayward, Peralta, Bush, the cheap guys. Like, I think it's reasonable enough to do that. With Muncy coming back, man, I don't know. It's tough because it is a really good spot. Maybe the bottom of the lineup, although maybe the bottom of the lineup is the best way to go. I'm also curious how their lineup shakes out. You might get Austin Barnes in there, not Will Smith, which would be a knock to the to the overall stack, but it would make it cheaper with Barnes in there, which I think is really, really viable. Actually, I think that's really likely that will happen, that Barnes will catch. Yeah, so I obviously I like the Dodgers, and I like Kershaw. I have no problem playing Kershaw in a tough spot. I don't think I need to keep reminding people that every time he doesn't get played, and every time not every time, but he's every bit as good. Look at his numbers for the year. He's every bit as good as these other guys are, and I'm not gonna just cross him off. So that's where I'm at here. I don't honestly know. I'll talk more about it live at 6 because I don't know what exactly I'm going to do with him yet. But as of right now, this is I like Kershaw, I like the Dodgers, and I wouldn't play a 5-man stack of the Dodgers at this ownership. However, the one difference is between some of the other games we talked about, you have 3 Dodgers that might be below 10% owned. That has not been the case when we've had these monster totals this year. Everybody's been like 15, 20%. So maybe there's a way to do it. I just I don't think it's optimal to play the mega chalk as a 5-man stack.
Well, as usual, I like to start with the Vargas. And with Vargas, what's cool about him, he is righty, right? So that'll maybe keep his ownership sort of low. Maybe he'll bat 7th if he plays, yeah. Right? So if he bets 7th, maybe that'll keep his ownership low. It's not like he's 2,900, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's the guy I always like to play. And I guess between Outman, Peralta, and Hayward, I mean, one of them is maybe two of them are probably going to play, right?
2 of those guys should play.
Yeah. Maybe fade. I would say fade. Muncy, man. They're all in good spots, obviously, like you said. So
yeah.
I'll just say this: if you do a 5-man of the Dodgers, I mean, I want to see like Jameson Taillon as your pitcher. You know what I mean? Like I want to, you know what I mean? Right. Like I don't want to see any woos. I don't want to see any Petersons if you like him. You know what I mean? Like you really got to throw ownership out of the window.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe Perez Taillon or something. Maybe you do that.
I mean, I think there's enough. The problem with the pitching, though, I don't agree that pitching is enough to get you different when you play the chalk stacks in general. Right. Just because because on full slates, because you're not getting that many extra points unless you're playing massive upside guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody else out there is gonna, you know what I mean, get something. I don't know.
Yeah, but you're probably right.
It's a way if you had 2 of those guys and then a 3-man stack that is all sub 10%, maybe you could get away with that. I think that sounds like the best way to do it if you were to do it. But this is pretty clear that they and look, hey, if you want to find another reason to fade the Dodgers, for whatever reason, they just seem to hit better against the good pitching than they do against these schmoes. So that's that. I mean, look, we're trying to find reasons not to play them because they're clearly the best team to play.
Well, this is what you could do. You know what? You could play like Joe Ryan, for example, and the Grant Williams.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And here are 4 Dodgers that are that are playing. I even included Freeman in here, and you could do this really easily. So you don't even have to double pay down to play the Dodgers if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, you don't, because they actually aren't, because the bottom of their order isn't priced up that much, like because they don't do much. Mostly.
Muncy 5,200. I mean, like all you need to do. I mean, if you don't play Mookie, then you can get a 5-man of the Dodgers in and pay up for pitching if you wanted.
Yeah, but the problem is then that just leads it to, like, as much as we're seeing the ownership's high, they might be a lot higher than we have them projected for. Because right now, like, I mean, look, Vargas at 11%, Bush at 12%, JD only at 14%. That's not that crazy, but it is a big slate. But still, I don't mind playing a little bit of that.
Now you got me thinking of your theory though about the pitching. Like if I'm gonna use pitching to differentiate, you need to get like a big ceiling. That's why I've tried to throw like a Ryan in here because I know. Well,
actually, I think both those guys fit the category, fit the bill. I think Grant Williams can exceed his price by a lot. So I actually think that if you were to do it, that would be the kind of thing that you would want to do. I agree.
You can play Kershaw. I mean, that works.
Yeah, I like the Kershaw idea. Actually, I mean that works for many, many reasons. But yeah, and also wait to see the Dodger lineup tonight might be a little different than what people are expecting. So just keep an eye out. All right. So then we get into the Ohtani and against the White Sox here, Sheets.
Yeah, it's tough.
Hard not to have some interest. It is interesting for what it's worth. The White Sox have a pretty decent run total, but that happens occasionally against Ohtani. Looks like raw points wise, he would be the obvious play today, I guess.
Yep.
But I don't think he's going to be like crazy. I just think it's going to be hard. 11-3 is it's pretty high.
It doesn't matter though. You're going to play. Look at what I'm doing here. Even like just like if you play even like the two, you play Ohtani and Wu, for example. And I mentioned like 100 times. We will get them like pretty soon. It's boy, this is a big slate, huh?
Yeah, it's a monster.
I mean, you could literally play both these guys and like play 5 Dodgers that are good players, sort of. You know what I mean? So with that, that's why I think like Ohtani could be really chalky at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're probably right, but I mean, don't. I mean, Gausman's been the better pitcher than Ohtani. Gausman and Ohtani have been very close. Let's put it that way. It's not like he's like a leaps and downs ahead of everybody else that he's going to be that much more on.
That White Sox matchup is so sweet.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit. But I mean, to be honest, San Francisco's been a better team to target because they hit you, but they also strike out a ton.
Right.
Well, so here's the guy who I was going to propose. Well, actually, let's see which game you got next.
Before we even get into it, do you have any interest in Kopech?
I don't have interest in Kopech. I don't have interest in the Angels. The Angels get too much respect all the time.
Okay.
But I don't feel like it's a spot where I need to try to attack them. I actually have been impressed that he kind of bounced back with his career this year. He's had a couple of rough outings in a row. But Kopech, I mean, I guess you should consider him if you're playing enough lineups. But at this price, I'd probably just overlook him, to be honest with you.
All right, so you want some more cheapos? I mean, like Yankees at Oakland. I mean, Brito at 6,400. Why is that any worse than any of the others that we talked about? Boy, can you play Blackburn even? I'd probably rather play. I don't know, have it in me to play Blackburn, but Brito, why is he any worse than any of these other guys?
Definitely the shortest leash, the lowest upside.
Okay,
those are the reasons. But I have him on my list as well. I actually like him, so no problem with Brito.
Yep.
Just that's the reason.
Anything else in this game?
I think it's interesting that this game was played in New York. That I think the Yankees would be the natural pivot, but the fact that it's 62 degrees in Oakland makes them. That and the fact that their lineup is kind of gross, and they've got guys projected in their lineup on MLB.com that are not even on the team. So we'll see what's happening. We'll see what's happening with that one. I'm probably just off this game.
All right. So same speech as far as I'm concerned regarding Brian Wu. That the speech being that he's going to be decently owned and Washington doesn't strike out. We'll watch the ownerships later, but quite honestly, I would probably try to pivot. Like he does rate to be the second best overall pitcher behind Ohtani, but we talked about like several very, very good options. Some even cheaper than this, and some right at this range, like between Montgomery and Suarez. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got here. I'm not getting to any of the hitting in this game. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I like Wu. Again, I'll just do my normal throwing out that the Nationals don't strike out.
Yep.
And they're pesky. They're tough. They're tough to beat, man. Tough to get a great ceiling performance, but he's 6,900. I like Seattle. That might be my favorite place to go back. And look, they had a nice night last night. You've got some really, really cheap options in their order. They're you can get them in pretty easily. I like attacking Washington and Jake Irvin. So I'm very high on Seattle as one of my main stacks today. That's my main thing from this game. And then I do like Wu, but I don't see that he has to be so different from these other guys. He's going to be compared to Suarez, it'll be 3 times his own, maybe more. Yeah, I think I wouldn't rate him ahead of those guys, but I expect him to have a better game than those guys, but I don't think it's going to be like if it's 3-1. if he has double the ownership, that's probably about right. I don't think that he should have more than double the ownership of some of those other guys we mentioned. But I for what it's worth, I like Wu.
So final game, I'll start. Tampa, Arizona. I mean, Taj Bradley doesn't really have the leash yet, but he mows people down when he's got it going. Like this must have been really tilting if you had him against Oakland. He had 11 strikeouts and 388 pitches. They didn't even let him hang on to get through the fifth inning. Actually, barely. Yeah,
he's just not going to throw that many pitches.
Yeah. So he definitely has some heat, but just doesn't have the leash of some of these other guys. So I'm not getting to him. And Gallen has kind of, he's been good, but he's leveled off a little bit. He was like winning the Cy Young for me, like earlier in the season. But he's good. I mean, he's definitely he's definitely a yet another lower owned pivot. But I don't even have him that low. I have him at like 15% ownership. But throw him in the mix, I suppose. Gallen, probably not Bradley, and neither of them hit it.
Yeah, I like Gallen. I think that look, he may not be, he might get 15%. I don't even know if I buy that, but he might. I think that he actually is going to be. I think he and Kershaw. You want to talk about ceilings?
Yeah.
For guys that are going to be low owned, those guys really stand out to me. So I like that. And just for what it's worth, just looking against what Tampa Bay is the fifth most strikeouts against right-handed pitching in baseball. Now it's a double-edged sword with them because they also crush the ball against right-handed pitch. It's a very strange mix. They just strike out a ton and they crush the ball. But like all the teams around them are hitting like 220 around right against righties. They're hitting 265, and they've got the most home runs. I believe they might have the most home runs in all of baseball against right-handed pitching. So it's or second most behind Atlanta, but they're they can hit the ball, but they can swing and miss. So I'm into the Gallen idea just for that reason, and he's going to be a little lower owned. As that was the last game, I'll give my what I'm doing. And again, this is every game today is every game that's being played in baseball. Every team is playing, and they're all on one slate. So it's a lot. I have on the high end, Ohtani and Gausman are the logical ones. I like Kershaw and Gallen as pivots. I like this Grant Williams thing, and Grant Williams and Wu would probably be my favorite from the low end. But factoring in ownership, I do think Suarez, Perez, Montgomery, and Brito are all in play as well. And then I only have 4 stacks that I want to focus on. But my notes are Dodgers, 4-man or less, Seattle. Totally fine with anything. Texas, San Diego. Those are my main ones. And then can we get to like a Baltimore mini stack? I can definitely talk myself into Baltimore. Can we get to maybe some of the Milwaukee, Miami, Philadelphia lefties, Kansas City, Cleveland game? All of those are interesting, but I want to keep it kind of tight. So it's going to be mostly focused on San Diego, Texas, LA, and Seattle, but I'm going to try and use the Dodgers as a complementary stack. It's an unfortunate team to use the complementary stack because they're really patient. And they make for better 5-man stacks than they do for 3-mans. But what I may do is some 4-4s today, just so I can get the Dodgers in with a 4-man, maybe play a 4-4 in my big ones with Seattle or something like that.
Yeah, so what we're going to do, like you requested, is we're going to do a SaberSim build. We uploaded the projections here. We're going to build, we'll build 150 lineups just for the fun of it.
See what it goes, yeah.
And we're going to see what it comes up with. I'm guessing, again, I bet you it just comes up with all the Dodgers. SaberSim is really bad, not bad, but when a team projects that much higher, they really just sometimes don't care about the ownership at all. And they'll put 100% Dodgers. That's actually what I'm predicting actually comes up. So we will see if that actually happens, but we shall see. Loading lineups. And no, Cleveland. Let's go. How about that?
There you go.
Well, how about 71% Jose Ramirez for the boys?
Wow, 71% only on
all of the Cleveland. Let's see. First of all, let's look at the pitchers. They only want us to use 24 pitchers.
Well, that makes sense actually for this slate.
And Gavin Williams, second highest owned. Like that, right? Oh, it's in a mood today. So now on the team stacks, 78% Cleveland, with the nailer combination, you'd imagine.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers second, followed by my other pick, Philly, San Diego, and Texas. So, and Miami. So, again, if you have it in you, that would be the recommended from SaberSim at least. Pivot off of the Dodgers would be Cleveland.
Yeah.
Proceed at own risk, but that's what we got.
It's interesting because Cleveland will be the second highest owned team today.
Oh, will it? Okay.
I'm almost positive they will be. There's no way. Like I couldn't look at anybody else, and even the early projections have them, have them close to like a 8 to 10% owned. Which is pretty high. But it's interesting. Like I said, if Cleveland could hit some more home runs, I would have a little more interest. But I mean, look, you can always play Jose Ramirez. I guess I could talk myself into maybe a mini Cleveland. I just don't. I like my other stacks a little better. All right, but it should be fun. We'll be live at 6 Eastern, and I'll put up all my early builds and my plays of the day. My core plays and my bets of the day and all that stuff. I think we won the bets yesterday. Not 100% sure on that, but okay. I know I had the under in that one game that definitely hit the under. But anyway, guys, good luck tonight, and we'll see you live at 6 Eastern.
Yep, I'll see you.